Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Meta and Apex Legends competitive podcast. I'm your host, Burke, and today we don't have a guest because I decided it would be best with the new split to discuss the legends that I think are going to be viable in the competitive meta, the legends that I think aren't quite good enough yet to be seen in comp, the legends that I think people are definitely sleeping on, and then the legends that I think are surely going to dominate the meta moving forward. So with that, let's dive right into it. For this, I think the easiest way and the way that everyone is very familiar with is just the tier list. So I'm going to be doing it that way. And I'm going to be sorting them by legends that I think will never be played in competitive, the legends that I think will be very unlikely to see in competitive, legends that I think are viable, but maybe on the lower end of that, legends that I think are very, very viable, and that I think is likely we'll see in Pro League. And then finally, topping it off with very likely legends that I think we will certainly be seeing dominate the meta. And then I also have some niche picks at the bottom that I will be basically that I think that only fit if you're playing certain play styles. So in the niche category, there are very specific legends that only fit there if you're willing to play that niche playstyle. So we're going to start out with the very obvious nevers, the legends that I think you are not going to really be seeing played in competitive. This is through, and some of this might permeate into ranked as well, and can inform the types of legends that you're playing there. But in general, if you're playing ranked, you should just play the legends you enjoy and that you are the best at. So definitely take that with a grain of salt. This is mostly for Challenger Circuit and for Pro League. So if you're looking to improve there, you could definitely look at this as some groundwork for the types of legends you should be looking at playing in competitive. But there's also some wiggle room, and I'm curious for you to let me know what you think in the comments, because I'm sure there's some things that people are going to disagree with. So let me know there. Starting out with the never category, we have some pretty obvious people here, and the first of which is Mirage. I was actually talking earlier on Reddit, and one of the big thoughts that I had about Mirage, someone was asking how to improve him, and I think there are definitely ways that we could see Mirage take a step up. And one of the big ones I was thinking was maybe some sort of larger punishment for shooting one of his decoys. One thing I thought about for that could be interesting would be maybe like a flashbang or stun effect that happens, or something similar to maybe like a white version of the catalyst walking through the catalyst wall, something like that, where there's a punishment for shooting the wrong one, because I do think that would cause the stutter that would give him the advantage, or something like maybe giving the your allies as well decoys in your ultimate, because that would make it a little bit more confusing if you see extra, Bangalores or Bloodhounds running around. That might give you pause. So that would be that's definitely the first person in Never, though, because right now he doesn't have any really big team utility. Additionally, making noise when he reses and stuff also makes it a little bit harder to see there. So we'll move on to the next one in the Never category. Octane's one that I think has had time in the limelight, but is a character that is definitely designed to be fun to play, not fun to play in competitive. There's a lot of very punishing acts of using Octane. For one, the stim damaging you. Two, the Octane pad is just kind of outclassed by other things, and you kind of get shot out when you're doing this. It's very easily punishable. And overall, the team utility is just not comparatively as high. Passive's pretty decent, but and there's definitely utility here. But I think this legend's much more comfortable in pubs, or in mixtape or something, and I think that people are fine with that. Both of these legends kind of fit into the category of they're fun to play, and that's the big appeal, right? There's totally some legends that are just meant to be fun to play. This is a legend that really shines with movement, and so I guess maybe you could see some movement players playing a CC, but unless you have like absolutely insane utility, insane movement, then you're really just not going to see crazy value with Octane. The next one is one that I was kind of hesitant to put here, but especially given the very niche nerf that she received, I feel pretty comfortably putting Alter here in the never category. I just think that, yes, there was absolutely utility that she had that could be valuable, and I think she still has it, but I just don't right now think that her abilities grant her anything that is highly valuable in competitive. There are some very unique rotations and some very micro things that you can do that certainly will shine in like ranked or pubs. But I think when you're in comp, the kit that she has is just entirely too niche to provide any value. And then you're probably going to ask that question because obviously there's a big word glaring you here. I just said niche, but it's not the type of niche that can be replicated over and over again. When the and this is why I talk specifically about the crypto exploit. I wouldn't even call it an exploit. The crypto combination with Alter, that was really the only way that she was relatively viable in competitive. And so, and even then, it was pretty a pretty specific use case that just is not replicable at the highest levels. And so, sure, for like a team that is very good and like pro league caliber, they could dominate CC with an Alter crypto, but without that, I just think anyone else is just going to suffer to put that together. And especially now that that's gone, there's really not a lot of use cases where her utility provides enough value outside of like a very close end game, in which case you would need someone else to get you there. Alter's not going to provide that. So I just think that with some changes, maybe she could be better, but I think she's fine where she is as a character, just not in competitive. The last one that I think fits in this category is Revenant. Revenant's a character that's very good in ranked, very, very good in ranked, and is an enjoyable legend to play. Again, we come back to like the legends that are just fun, and Revenant definitely fits that billet. He's also very individually strong, probably this most individually strong legend, but in terms of providing any value for the team, there really isn't any, aside from the fact that maybe you can win a better fight because you're gonna like win a one-on-one because you have extra shield. But in reality, one-on-ones are very rare in pro league or in challenger circuit alone. Like typically you should be fighting with your team and looking to angle people out 2-1 or 3-1 when you're taking a fight. So that's just not really enough value to be providing in your team to be worth picking up. So then we'll move on to the unlikely category. These are legends I think we could see a few people play, and it's not necessarily that they don't really deserve the never category, but I think there's like little things, little X factors that mean that like maybe one team could pick them up and do okay with, but maybe they're outclassed by other legends that just make it not as worthwhile for picking up. So the first one I have there is one that I had a lot of promise for when she initially got her buffs with season 20, but eventually she really just didn't fit the billet, and that was Mad Maggie. Mad Maggie definitely has a very good kit, but it's specifically oppressive to zone play styles, and there are just at the moment better edge players, better edge legends that can do what she does a little bit better. Not even necessarily what she does specifically, but just the aggressive playstyle they can pull off better. She's very much like a oppressive poking legend, and I just think that with some of the other legends we'll talk about later, she just isn't quite there to where she could be picked up. Don't get me wrong, though, if a few legends fall off and are nerfed pretty heavily, then I do think we actually could see her move up without any relative change to her kit, because I think her kit is actually very good, but it's pretty comp dependent right now on what other teams are playing, and other teams just unfortunately aren't going to be playing the people that Mad Maggie needs to play to be able to be successful. So, and with that, we move into one of the other legends that I think, again, some players just do a little bit better, some legends just do a little bit better, but I actually think could be done very well as he currently is, and that's Ballistic. I actually think Ballistic has a really, really good kit. I understand some of the qualms that people have with Ballistic's kit specifically, but I think that in competitive, where fights have very short time frames, right? I mean, a team fight should be over in like 10 to 15 seconds. Most people would agree. Having that situation, and having the ability to stop one of the enemy players from shooting their gun for like half that duration, I think that's pretty valuable, especially when you have two Whistler bullets and you can actually make two of the enemy teammates not be able to shoot their guns. I think that is pretty valuable in a fight, and if you're willing to close out the fights very fast and commit to a fight when you take it, having a Ballistic could actually be really valuable for that, especially considering the ability to preserve ammo economy. because the ability to have a gold weapon, which by the way can now scale up with your armor levels, so you could have a white, blue, purple armor, even white, blue, purple gun in your sling as well. So if you want to like snipe with it or something, you could put a sentinel in your sling, and ultimate just to have a charged sentinel whenever you want, which the ultimate has a very low cooldown. It's very quick to get that back, and if you want, you could swap your guns, throw a Havoc in there when you're about to push a fight, and now you have a golden Havoc for a fight, which, yes, Havoc's still very good, and still worth having if you have it gold, especially. So, all that to be said, I think that Ballistic, if you're willing to commit to fast fights, can actually be really good, but I still put it in the unlikely just because I don't think anyone is going to really commit to that playstyle. So I'm happy with that where it is. Next, we'll move to another legend that I think definitely saw some buffs with the Season 20 perks, and that is Vantage. Vantage is the only legend right now that can hit both beacons. At the moment, Pathfinder can hit both one or the other, but he cannot hit both. Vantage is the only one that can hit the survey beacon and then on blue armor hit the ring console as well, which means that it is unlikely she'll get picked because other than that, there really isn't a ton of team utility. But in terms of actually like granting armor evo for your team and also providing 2 open legend spots to play whatever you want, it's pretty valuable. But the only problem is I just think that there are other legends that you're going to want on your comp that provide that utility without that being the priority. An example would be you might want a controller legend on your team to hold space, not to just get the ring console. And like so having that, it puts her in a bad position where it's like, the same can be said with a recon legend. Like there are other recon legends that I want to have because of other utility that they have, not just their ability to hit survey beacons. So I think she just runs into that issue where it's like, yeah, that's great, she can hit both, but I don't know that I'm going to be playing 2 legends that can't use those, if that makes sense. Like maybe you could, swap out. I've seen people run, people are running, Bang Blood Lifeline. You could maybe swap out the Bloodhound for Vantage so that you can get double beacon. That's feasible, but is it good enough to provide the value that Bloodhound was providing? So for that reason, I think it's pretty unlikely that she's going to see play in competitive. And the next one is Wraith. There's a little asterisk right there with specifically, design playing them on DSG. But I think that we're going to see probably that go away even as well. Who knows? But I just think that Wraith, again, this is a legend that other legends accomplish the same things but better. I do think that Wraith still is actually really good, but it is pretty meta dependent. I think that there is a chance that in other regions aside from North America, we could see Wraith be more successful. I think APAC North is a region that we could definitely see Wraith be more successful in, or just in general, regions that are more willing to share space, which almost every region but NA is a lot more comfortable sharing space. But regardless of that, you kind of need a very zone-oriented comp to be comfortable with having a Wraith on your team. You have to have a lot of other teams playing zone, and you have to have this like agreement to share space. DSG plays a very niche play style to make Wraith work, and I don't necessarily think it's wrong, but I don't think a lot of people can replicate what he's doing. And I think Wraith actually's biggest strength is in end zones, being able to reposition. So I think Wraith is actually significantly better for a zone team than for an edge team. That being said, I was torn between putting Wraith in the unlikely and niche categories. Right now, I'll leave her in the unlikely. But I could, maybe I'll change my mind and move her to the niche category later. Next one we have, and the last one on this unlikely category, is Ashe. Ashe is a legend that I've wanted to see in competitive for a long time, but I don't think that there's been enough to her kit done to make it worthwhile. Her ultimate is right now just not where it should be. It needs to be a little bit longer. It needs to be a little bit more reliable. If they could fix just that, I think her kit alone would be good enough to see comp play. And I think Ashe is actually one of the very few legends that when partnered with Vantage could go very well. I actually think a a like Vantage Newcastle Ash could go really, really crazy. Just the ability to set up, but also have the ring console, have the long range oppression. I think that's a legend composition that I think could work really well if Ash just got a little bit of love to put her above that. But that's one of the very niche examples that I could see where having a Vantage would work because of a different legend that provides value. So especially because of her passive that can, see where enemy teams are dying. I think that's actually super valuable in competitive, and it just hasn't been able to shine because the rest of her kit was just not reliable enough. So with that, that rounds out the unlikelies, and we're going to move into the viable minus or the lesser viable legends that I think are still definitely worth being played. I think we definitely will see some of them be played, but overall, I just think they are not quite at the caliber that the viable plus category has. The upper viable legends are, so I just didn't want to put them in the same category. By the way, I'm not actually like putting them in any order on the actual tier list. Like within the actual tiers, just because I don't really think that portrays any valuable information. I think that the unlikely category speaks for itself. The viable, lesser viable category speaks for itself. And because of the way that legend metas can be flexible, I think we're in one of the most flexible metas. I mean, the fact that I have unlikely, but I'm still saying they could be played. I mean, everything above here and the niche, everything but these 4 legends, I think could be in Pro League and could see some small variable of success at the very least. So it's just meant to say how successful I think they would be in reference to each other, given every team was playing them or something like that. So definitely, I'm not really ordering them specifically within the actual tier itself. Anyway, let's move on to lesser viable legends, and some of the ones that I think fit into this lesser viable legends section would be firstly Gibraltar, which if I could find him, there he is. There we go. So Gibraltar is another one that I've wanted to see come back for a while. I think a lot of people really like Gibraltar, and I do think that right now with his double bubble perk, I think he actually, or his like smaller bubble, faster cooldown perk, and some of his other perks, I think he's another person that really benefited from season 20 and the perk system, and I think that's still reigning true. When he got brought when that happened, we saw a caustic meta kind of come out of nowhere, and I think that really slowed the momentum that Gibby had. But I think right now with the current meta as we see it, which I'll get into when I get to the very likelies, I think with that current meta, I think that Gibraltar actually has a lot better chance to shine, especially in endgames. And on rotations now than he has before. Whereas I would have probably put him in the unlikely going into this new split. I think that right now Gibraltar's in a pretty comfortable spot to be played. Again, I think he gets outpaced by some other legends, but all in all, I think he's actually pretty good. And I wouldn't give any changes to him other than like if the meta shifts, he could see more action. I think even now I might even move him to the viable plus area, but because of the existence of one other legend, I think that maybe that's not quite as honest. So moving past that one, we'll go into the next legend that I would put in this category, and that's Horizon. A lot of people, with the Bang Bloodhound combo being nerfed, a lot of people thought, well, okay, now now Horizon's going to come back. And I just don't think that's the reason Horizon left to begin with. I don't think Horizon really left the meta because of another legend taking the spot as much as she left because she just wasn't as good anymore. And I think that remains to be true. She's absolutely still good. She can still move your whole team to height. She can still take, dodge utility from enemy teams, but the amount to which she gets punished and your team gets punished on the tactical is just way too punishing right now to make her any better than that. That being said, she's still great. She's just not at her former glory, and there's still teams that will be successful with her in the highest level. Again, just not nearly as much as she would have been when she was at the very likely tier. Moving into the next one that I think that could fit really well in here, and I'm going to throw Conduit in this one. Conduit's a legend that I actually think is still very, very good. I think that the existence of a few other legends, again, this comes back to kind of outpace her a little bit, especially in the current meta. With the current meta, with very specific legends, the way in which they break shields can be dodged in other ways. There's a little bit of a hint to what I'm going to be getting to soon. But overall, Conduit's ability to put out her shields and project shields onto your teammates is a very, very good ability. And if you're committed to that playstyle on Edge, then I absolutely think Conduit can provide that value really well. I think that the swap from Conduit to the Lifeline that was being picked up is definitely, I get why, but I think there's definitely an argument for placing Conduit in that same, Edge rotating placement. The only difference is that, Lifeline provides you the loot, whereas Conduit, provides you the uptime in the fights. So I think Conduit's definitely really, really good. I definitely think that she's been overshadowed. She had a very small time in the sun, and then some other legends took that space. But I definitely think we could see some teams pick her up and still be successful. More on the Edge side, but you can definitely reserve shields in zone as well. So it's not a bad legend to pick up on the other side as well by any means. The next legend that I think fits into this category is, if I can find, yeah, we got Seer. Seer, a lot of people, this is another thing right now, right? A lot of people, when this new splits patch notes came out, right? There was the nerf to Bloodhound's synergy with Bangalore. And a lot of people jumped right to the conclusion that Seer was back in the meta. And I do think, don't get me wrong, I think a lot of people are going to be playing Seer in the early days of this meta, but I don't think that Seer is as valuable as people are currently staking him to be compared to still Bloodhound, which obviously I haven't picked yet, and another, even, Crypto, or another very notable legend that is providing a lot of value right now, which is the Fuse ult with the balloon. So I think all three of those are just completely outpacing what Seer is able to provide right now. I don't think Seer provides nearly enough value to be worth playing right now compared to them. That being said, Seer's still pretty good. Seer's not bad, but and you're not going wrong by playing them. You could see success, but there are just other legends doing it better. So I don't think you'll see him as much as compared to these other legends. Moving into the other, another legend that I think is kind of fitting into this category, and that's going to be Caustic. Caustic's right on the bubble for me. I think Caustic could go either way. In terms of where I would set him, because I think Caustic is on the lower end of the controller legends. As you can see right now, no controller legend has showed up in any of these categories yet until Caustic. It's because the controller legends are overall really good right now and in a really solid spot. I think Caustic is probably the worst at the moment, just because of the changes with Bloodhound, because of certain other synchronizations with other legends and benefits like that. I just don't think that Caustic can provide as much value as at least two of the other controller legends, I would argue, in Catalyst and Watson, which I'll get to in a moment. But I do think that right now I'd put him in the viable minus. I'm not really sure that I could see a very easy argument to say he could be in viable plus, because I don't, they haven't really changed him much. He's still really good. And the fact that not a lot of people are playing Caustic is a huge advantage. We've seen Pioneers be successful with them. I'm curious to see if they're going to continue to play Caustic moving forward, because I do think that's a legend that definitely could be done well in the meta. And with that, I would put one last one in this category, and that's specifically Newcastle. Newcastle is another legend that I think could really shine right now, and I'm also considering putting in the viable plus category, because his ability to provide resets and to provide cover, where now with his ultimate wall having a ton of shield health, but also deflecting projectiles, could be really, really powerful in the current meta that we're going to be seeing. So I actually think that he's going to be doing really, really well in this current meta, and if we see people picking him up, I think it could be a huge bonus. The only negative to his kit is that he's not a controller. He's a support. If he was a controller legend, I think he would be easily in viable plus. maybe border, maybe not very likely, but definitely viable plus, because the kit that he provides is very very strong. Having not having a ring console is definitely the biggest detriment. I'd be curious to see how his pick rate would skyrocket if they gave him similar to the Vantage or Pathfinder treatment and gave, or the even the Fuse treatment, and gave Newcastle for a season the perk to be able to hit ring console at, second, at blue armors. I think that if we did that, even, it would move him to the viable plus. Right now, I'm comfortable with viable minus for Newcastle. I think he's also very 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 good, and especially in the current meta, with being able to deny projectiles, infinitely better. Which moves me into my. I'm going to jump from now here down to the niche legends. The legend that I think could see or only good if you're playing them in tandem with other legends, or maybe can see varying success depending on their composition with other very niche play styles. So going into like the very niche play styles, the first obvious one is the Rampart comp. I think that Rampart can succeed in Pro League. I think that CCE has been a prime example. When Complexity was running Rampart, they were doing very well with it. I think this is a legend that gets a lot of hate, and I see why. Because it's really only fair to talk about her in addition with Loba, which is why Loba and Rampart are going to sit here, because the benefit of this composition and the reason that a lot of teams don't like it is because of how effective it is in ruining other teams. Basically, it makes every other team have a hard time, and that's the biggest charm, right? If you have really good macro, you can get to end zone. You can actually really really punish other teams, and that's the primary benefit, right? For example, Loba, she can just take all your stuff, right? Loba can take all your stuff, and she takes the care package that dropped, no Kraber for you. She takes your shields that you dropped. You can't drop a shield swap because they'll take it. Everything that you want that's out on the floor, they will take from you. They can take all the armor from the ground, or all the ammo from the ground. There's nothing you can do. So that's the value that Loba provides, right? And specifically, we'll get to the negatives in a second. But as for Rampart, Rampart denies balloons. Rampart, if you try to take a balloon, you're not taking that. If I don't want you to, you're not taking it. Or if I want you to die on the going up the balloon, I could do that too. The amped cover means I can snipe a lot more effectively, especially with the Sentinel's good right now. If I see you with a Sentinel, I'm taking you out. If you're on a rotate and I have a Sentinel, I'm taking you out. If you're burning a cat wall, I'm going to shoot the Rampart Sheila through that wall, and I'm going to spray you. So it's really bad for rotates for other teams, denies rotates for other teams, and it takes loot from other teams. So a lot of people don't like that because of those specific things. As for the negatives, obviously, you have to play zone. You pretty much have to play zone. You can play ring 3 and get by depending on what your third legend is, which is definitely another, we could talk about that, but that's kind of a different discussion there. I think that both of them just benefit from a very zone oriented playstyle, and it's just you're putting yourself out to the RNG gods at that point. Because if you get caught out aside from in zone, you're gonna have some problems, and even rotating in the late game in zone, you also are gonna have some problems. So it's really good for posting up, getting late placement. Pretty hard to solidify better, kill KP. You're very much up to the RNG gods pretty much the whole game. But you can set yourself up to take advantage of good games. Moving into another niche legend that very validly fits here is the Lifeline. Lifeline is very, very good right now. I think Lifeline is actually really solid, but she is very shoehorned to the edge playstyle. You really can't play her aside from a few POIs where you're going to be spending your whole game taking fights on edge the entire time. You're playing for very high KP. It's a high risk, high reward playstyle. Lifeline is set to kit you out for that, to take advantage of all of that late rotating, so that you can come in with triple red or purple red, have a care package gun. Like, you're going to be coming in very very kitted thanks to a Lifeline, and that's absolutely the biggest benefit of her. The problem is, again, it's the opposite of the Rampart Loba, where now you have to play hard edge versus playing hard zone. Even when you have a zone pull to you, you can take it, but you're really not getting nearly as much advantages sitting there as long as you are, unless you can somehow capitalize on your ultimates. But it's going to be hard with the not getting alt excels and stuff like that. The next one that fits into, I was tempted to put here or in the viable to viable, lesser viable category. And that's the Pathfinder, because I think Pathfinder fits into pretty much the same category as the Lifeline. I know that sounds really weird to put these two together, but I actually think that this Pathfinder fits is like the same playstyle as the Lifeline. Arguably a little bit different, but similar. Pathfinder is probably, I've said this to a couple people, but it's probably the best Evo farming legend in the entire game. If you're playing in ranked and you want to get to like purple armors before you take fights every game, play Pathfinder, go on Edge, and just like, you literally, so let me paint this out for you. If you play Pathfinder and you get the survey beacon, right? Which, an Edge team wants a survey beacon because you want to know where teams are when you're rotating. A Pathfinder can land in a POI, and then he can use his grapple and go all over the place, right? Then when the first ring care packages drop, he can hit both of them. He'll probably only need to hit one of them, and he'll get his ultimate, right? Because it does 50% charge on the care package. So you do that, now you have your ultimate. You can pop your zip line to get back to your team. Now you're going to look at it again. Now you have 50%. At this point, you've probably hit an Evo cache. So you probably have already at this point, plus the 100 Evo, you're probably a blue armor. You're a blue armor now. You're going to hit the survey beacon perk. Now I have 50% on my thing. I'm going to take my zip line back to my POI. I'm going to hit that survey beacon that was there. And then I will have that survey beacon also gives you 50% of your alt charge. So now I have my alt back. I'm going to put that at another, I'm going to put that to the next POI over, and I'm going to hit their survey beacon because I know now with my survey beacon that they're not there. I'm going to go hit another Evo cache and stuff. And you basically you could put like a ton of grapples. It's so easy to get your ultimate back. You could put so many zip lines across the map, and you can almost guarantee, as long as you're hitting the survey beacons and using that info correctly, you can dodge all the teams and you can get up to purple armor before you ever take fights. Additionally, the ultimate with the charged zip line, where it gives you minus 50% damage when you're on the zip line, is really, really good for late game rotates. I think it's criminally slept on how good it is right now. You can, if you really want to be safe, you can partner it with a catalyst so that you can take safe rotations, put the cat wall down, and then you hit the zip, or you partner with the Bangalore, you smoke out the main team you're worried about, and then you zip across. Sure, you might take damage from other teams, but it's not as much because you smoked off the main threats. There's so many values that I think Pathfinder can provide, but you do have to play Edge. I don't think you can take zone early with him. I mean, obviously, if you had it, you could try, but the biggest benefit that Pathfinder has right now is hitting the Evo. I talked that one a little bit more than I needed to, but that's because I do think that that's one not a lot of people are talking about, or at least nearly not as much. The next one that I think fits into this niche category is Valkyrie. Again, a weird one. I think a lot of people are going to be curious why Valk fits this one, and there's two reasons. One, because I think she's primarily way better on Stormpoint, which every legend has their variation of which map they thrive better on. I do think that Valk fits into the niche playstyle, though, because of her ability for Ring 3. That's very specific, but I think that Valk's biggest strength is playing out of Ring 3 Beacon. That's not a new strategy, but it's a strategy that's being used a lot more right now. And I think Valk is a perfect legend to provide value for that. So the way that Ring 3 works is you wait. It's basically you're playing off of, instead of playing a zone team where in Ring 1 you hit the ring console and you get where Ring 2 is, you instead during Ring 2 hit the ring console and see where Ring 3 is, and then you play off of that information to secure the best pot in end zone. Because the zone is smaller, you can have a better chance of figuring out where that end zone is. That's the basics of it. Typically, these teams then use an evac to get in a spot, and yes, you can use an evac for that, and it still works, but Valk has a lot more flexibility, and so if you want consistency in playing Ring 3, Valk can absolutely provide that. So for that reason, I think she can definitely survive there. She also can really help zone comps. If you're trying to play hard zone, I think Valk still has some space. We see like CCE, was running the Valk on Command Center. I think there's definitely room for that. Valk still can definitely get you out of some sticky situations. So I think Valk is just like, I put her in the niche because it's not really as shoehorned as some of these other legends are, but I do think there's a lot of like room for her to fit into specific play styles. And so I just feel like she maybe the argument would be for viable, lesser viable, or viable minus, but I'm going to put her in niche for this. Moving into the last two categories, we have the viable plus, the upper viability of legends, and then finally the very likely legends. And as you can see, we have 6 left, and the first going into the viable plus, I'm just gonna get out of the way so you're not nervous anymore. I'm gonna put Crypto here. Crypto, I think, with Season 20's perk system, saw some of the biggest buffs of any of the legends, and the only reason that he doesn't see a lot of play is because of the way that players like to play the game. And so maybe Crypto could find his way into the niche category as well. But I would argue that if you are comfortable with the kit that Crypto has, you can be successful playing a lot of variations of playstyle with this kit. I think that you could play a edge playstyle with Crypto. I think you can play a zone playstyle with Crypto. I think you can play flex with Crypto. I think Crypto is actually very good. The problem, and I think the reason that he's not played nearly as much, is because it relies on pretty much 2 things. One, you kind of need to be MK to play him, which, that already can eliminate a lot of the pool, because you're not going to put your controller player on Crypto. That's a weird thing, right? Doesn't even need to be your IGL, but it needs to be your MNK player, because you need that maneuverability to make sure that your drone doesn't get hit out. I'm not saying you couldn't do it on controller, but I just think the efficiency is going to be way higher on MNK. Secondly, I think a lot of people just don't really play Crypto. They don't like the way that he plays, the way he feels, and that can cause issues. You need to understand how to play Crypto. There's a little bit of a delay to the actions you're taking. If you want to take a fight, you have to get your drone in position before you make the action. And so as long as if you understand Crypto, you can be really successful. And I think if you understand Crypto really well, I think he's easily in the viable plus. I think that, especially with the Bang Blood synchronization nerf, I think that he is more viable than he's ever been right now. And I think that Crypto is someone that, if you are good at Crypto, you should give him a try, because I think you can be successful. But what you have to do, and what you can't just be committed to playing hard zone, or you don't have to be just committed to playing hard zone with him. Understanding the different ways that he provides value is really, really important. If you want more specifics on that, let me know in the comments or something. I could try to make a thread about it or something, but there's definitely a lot you could do with Crypto that I think is getting slept on. Moving into the next one that fits this category, and the only reason this legend isn't in the most likely is because I think there's 2 legends that, are really, really good, and they overlap. There's 3 legends really that have overlap, but like these 2 have a little bit of overlap. And the first one here is Catalyst. Catalyst's ability for rotations is just insane. I mean, Catalyst's rotations are just insane. And the ability to hold space is insane. Like, Catalyst is probably the best legend. I'm tempted to put her in very likely to be played, but I just don't. I think that she's going to get outpick rated by some other legends. And so I just don't know that I can put her there, especially because of the very specific instance of the current meta. The current meta moves her down to viable plus. I think she's probably the best legend right now, but I just think that the current meta puts her in viable plus. Catalyst, the ability to control space, control a building, rebuild doors is just nuts. The cover that the wall provides you and rotates, and in late game space holding, is just, it really is unbeaten by almost every other legend, So I think she's very, very, very good. I just don't think that in the current meta, she's as strong as in other metas. Which leads me to the last one in this space. I'm actually going to hold off on this one because I think it's a lot more relevant to talk about after, because I want to talk about this first legend that I think is still going to see a ton of play. I think that is crazy that people have said that he's not going to see they're not going to see a ton of play, and that's Bloodhound. Bloodhound is still very, very good. Bloodhound's ultimate, yes, it can't see through the bank smokes anymore, but you can still hit your tactical faster than you've never been able to hit, and you can still do a ton of really valuable stuff. And so I'm actually going to move Bloodhound into very likely, because I think that they're going to be pretty dominant in the meta still. I think that we're going to still see about an 80% pick rate of Bloodhound once people start to realize just how valuable they can be in with their scans. Like, yes, you have to scan before you take a fight, but who cares? Like, that's still a ton of value that you provide. And in endgame, the ability to scan the Ravens and get your tactical back immediately and just keep scanning Ravens, like that's very, very good for late game information. And I forget what the other purple perk is, but it's also really good. So like either way, you're going to be juiced up as Bloodhound, and I think they're going to be really, really strong in the meta. So I moved to very likely. And the next one that I think is very likely is, no surprise, Bangalore. I think that Bangalore is still just as good. I think that Bangalore is, if anything, a little bit better, because now, whereas before, one of the big arguments was, who do you put your MK player on? You put them on the Bangalore, because then you can put the smoke, do the smokes correctly, or do you put them on the Bloodhound, because then they can fight in the smokes with the red, with the red eyes, and fight more effectively, right? That way they can, they can pop off. That's been a debate that you have. Who do you put them on? Because if you put the Bloodhound on the the controller player, your controller fragger on Bloodhound, well then when they're in the smoke, they don't have aim assist. So yes, they can see everything, but they don't have aim assist. If you put it on the Bangalore, sure, they can, that allows the, the Bloodhound to be the MK player, but now you don't have as good of efficiency with smokes. Smokes are a little bit harder to be accurate, a little harder for the timing. You can't take as much advantage of the movement buff. So what do? Now, you could just put your MK player on Bangalore, because now you can see in the smoke. So now you put your roller on Bloodhound, your fragger on Bloodhound, and problem solved. And so I think that they're still going to be really good together, and I think they're still going to be really good in general. So I think we're both going to be picked. And then we have the last two here. And the reason I have these last two together, because I think that they are the yin and yang of the new comp. And I think that I wouldn't be shocked if we don't see this play out, but it's going to be a little disappointing if I don't see people playing Wattson, because Fuse goes in the very likely category. Fuse, until this is the thing. This is the reason that Seer isn't viable, lesser viable. It's the reason that Bangalore is still very likely. Fuse is the crux of everything right now. I think we're going to see Fuse. I'm actually going to use Fuse all the way to the left. I think we're going to see Fuse played more than every other legend in this new meta, because right now, the existence of evac towers, being able to pop an evac tower, hit a Fuse ult, and basically light up an entire POI and be able to see where every person is in an entire POI for a long time, is so valuable, especially now that the bank smokes you can't see through with Digis. So now that you can't see through bank smokes with Digis, you can't see through with Bloodhound ult, being able to smoke out an enemy and then Fuse ult them, and now they're all highlighted in there, and now I can run in and I can fight. That is infinitely, it's even more valuable than it was going into this new split. Like with these new patch notes, it's even more valuable now to have a Fuse ult than it was like literally a few days ago. So I think that Fuse is going to be absolutely the crux of most compositions, whether they're playing zone or edge. I think that Fuse is just going to provide crazy value. Fuse already provided a lot of value without that exploit. And now with that exploit, or with that perk, or whatever you want to call it, with that advantage, Fuse is just way better. And yes, you have to get evacs, but I mean, there's a lot of ways to do that. One, you're taking fights with teams, so now you can, kill them for that info, and you can get another evac and stuff. So there's a lot of ways to work around it. Not to mention his poke potential. He can hit the ring console, so you can run literally this comp. I think you're going to see Fuse being played a lot. Which is where I get to the last legend on this list, Wattson. I would love to sit here and tell you that Wattson is going to just be right here, second to the top, because Wattson is a perfect counter to Fuse. Wattson counters everything about Fuse, right? His ultimate gets absorbed by her ultimate. His tacticals get absorbed by her ultimate. She gets arc stars when do you do that? So she gets free nades for taking your nades. There's a lot of really, really good value for Wattson. I think Wattson is the second best legend right now, behind Fuse. Easily, if not the best legend. I think Wattson is amazing. Not to mention the fact that you can't bang smoke a Wattson, because that gets eaten. You can't bang ult a Wattson, because that gets eaten. right? Catalysts like to throw their tactical sometimes at people. You can't do that. You can't throw caustic gas at people. You can't use Horizon ult. You can't use Gibby ult. You can't use Mad Maggie Drill. Well, you kind of can. It's a little bit weird. Can't use Smart Bullet. Okay. You can't use there's nothing really down here that you can use. You can't use the missile swarm, sure. You can't throw grenades. Watson denies so much crazy utility. Watson is so insanely good right now. And the fact that her gen is stronger than it's ever been. You can also choose to take 2. I wouldn't normally, I would take the stronger gen, but you could take 2 if you wanted to and hold even more space. Watson is very good, and the cooldown on her ultimate is not that high. And an ultimate accelerant immediately charges it, and you can carry 2 per slot, which means you could carry like 6 ult accels, and you could have a gen every single time you take a fight. You push the team, you put a gen behind a little section to provide you some cover, and you're set. You can get an instant reset every time. Watson is so good, but as much as I want to put her here, I'm going to put her here because I think that, yes, she absolutely deserves to be in the very likely stage, but I'm putting this off of how I think people will play her. And I unfortunately think that she's going to be criminally slept on. If she doesn't have an 80% or higher pick rate, in my opinion, she's criminally slept on. But yeah, I think she's going to be sitting at this Viable Plus. As much as I would want to put her here, I'm gonna set her here because I just think that this is probably going to be the run-of-the-mill comp you get. I could see the Bang being swapped for the Catalyst. I could see, a couple of these people in the Viable Minus taking spots. I could see some teams are going to be running the niche, some of these niche legends. But overall, I think Fuse is going to be the hard crux of almost every composition that you see. And could I be wrong about that? Bangalore, absolutely. I think is probably second fiddle there, and probably will. I could see Bangalore having the higher pick rate if people are still sleeping on what Fuse provides. But Fuse, I think, is definitely going to be the dominant characteristic of the meta going forward. And so with that, there's my list. I am very curious what you guys think about this because it is very interesting, and it's before we've seen any scrims. I'm recording this on Tuesday. I'm releasing this, right after. And so we've had no scrims yet. We've had no, tournaments yet. We've had no match days yet of ALGS as I'm recording this. So only time will tell how accurate this ends up being. But I am curious if you think that there are legends that you would move on this list, where you would change them. Is there categories that you think I should have just added to this list on the side that would have been more accurate and telling? I'm very curious overall what you guys think about the current meta as a whole. Are there legends that you think need to be nerfed, or characteristics of these legends that need to be nerfed? Legends that you think need their time in the sun. I know Alter was someone that people were really excited to see in comp, and obviously we never got. Wraith is someone that I think a lot of people would like to see come back. I personally would love to see Ballistic in the meta. I think that'd be fun. Ashe is a fun one I'd like to see. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on that. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for being here in this video. It's a different one than my usual podcast episodes, which I release every Tuesday. I have some really cool guests coming on in the future. And if you want to support me, go ahead and follow me on Twitter at Burke the Nerd. And you can also follow me on Twitch at Burke the Nerd, where I do weekly VOD reviews. So with that, thank you guys for joining me today, and I'll see you in the next one.